The large meeting room of the Galactic Council was quiet. Too quiet. Ambassador Krelthar stood at the front, his forearms trembling slightly as he activated the holographic display. A planet appeared in the center of the room, spinning slowly. It looked angry. Dark clouds covered most of the surface, and bright red spots showed active volcanoes. Lightning flashed constantly across the atmosphere. The other council members leaned forward in their seats. Some looked curious. Others looked afraid. Krelthar took a deep breath before speaking. His voice came through the translator device attached to his chest. This is Planet X7749. Our scientists have classified it as a Class 15 Deathworld. That is the highest danger rating we have ever given to any planet. A ripple of concern moved through the room. Council member Thress, who looked like living light trapped inside a crystal, glowed brighter with worry. Class 15? Ambassador, we have lost entire teams on Class 12 worlds. Why are we even discussing this planet? Krelthar touched a control, and the image zoomed in on a specific area of the planet. Because our long-range scanners found something impossible. Look here. These are structures. Buildings. Someone built a city on this nightmare world. An advanced civilization lived there, and we need to know how they survived. The room erupted with voices. Everyone wanted to talk at once. Some said it was too dangerous. Others said it was a trap. A few insisted the scanners must be wrong. Greg Palmer sat quietly in the back of the room. He was the human ambassador, a man in his 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been a soldier once, then a diplomat. He knew how to wait and listen. Finally, when the noise died down, he spoke. What do you need from Earth? The room went silent again. Every alien turned to look at him. Humans were still new to the galactic community. They had only invented faster-than-light travel 30 years ago. Most species thought humans were reckless and emotional. They took too many risks. They asked too many questions. They never knew when to quit. Krelthar's skin changed color, showing his discomfort. We need volunteers, Ambassador Palmer. We have sent 17 expeditions to worlds less dangerous than X7749. None returned. The Vexians went first, then the Thrall, even the Korthan warriors who wear armor thicker than starship hulls. All of them died within hours of landing. Greg stood up slowly. And you think humans will do better? We have heard stories, Krelthar said carefully. Stories about your homeworld. Stories that say Earth is not like other planets where intelligent life evolved. Is it true? Did humans come from a death world? Greg smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Earth has 5 major extinction events in its history. Asteroid impacts, volcanic winters, ice ages. 90% of all species that ever lived on Earth are now extinct. Humans survived because we learned to adapt. We learned to hunt animals that could kill us with one swipe of their claws. We learned to live in places where the temperature could freeze or boil us. We learned to eat food that was trying to poison us. So yes, Ambassador, Earth is a death world. We just never thought about it that way because it was home. The council members looked at each other nervously. Some of them came from planets where the most dangerous animal was about as threatening as a rabbit. The idea of evolving on a world that actively tried to kill you was terrifying. Greg straightened his jacket. I will talk to my government. If we agree to do this, we do it our way. No interference. No second guessing. You want us to explore that planet, then you trust us to know what we are doing. Krelthar nodded quickly. Agreed. We just need to know what happened on X7749. If humans can survive long enough to find out, the Council will owe your species a great debt. 2 weeks passed. The human exploration ship called the Wanderer entered orbit around planet X7749. The ship was not large, but it was tough. It had been built to handle extreme conditions. On board were 6 crew members. Commander Jake Morrison led the team. He was 40 years old with short dark hair and steady hands. He had served in the Marines for 10 years, spending time in Antarctica and the Amazon rainforest. He knew how to survive in places that did not want humans around. His second in command was Lieutenant Amy Garcia. She was a biologist who specialized in extreme environments. She had studied life in volcanic vents at the bottom of the ocean and bacteria that lived in radioactive waste. Nothing surprised her anymore. The engineer was Carl Hayes, a big man with a calm voice who could fix almost anything. The medic was Linda Sutton, small and quick with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Peter Grant was the team's expert on alien archaeology. He had spent 5 years studying ruins on 3 different planets. And the pilot was Natalie Brooks, who could fly through a hurricane if she had to. Natalie stared at the planet below and whistled softly. That is one angry rock. Gravity is almost twice what we have on Earth. The air is breathable but full of ash and sulfur. Temperature swings are extreme, and the scanners are picking up life signs everywhere. Big ones, Jake grinned. Sounds like a fun vacation spot. Amy, what should we be most worried about? Amy pulled up her data on a screen. Everything. The apex predators are massive. They hunt in packs. They have 6 legs and acid for blood. The plants are carnivorous and some of them can move. Even the tiny organisms are aggressive. This planet does not want anything to survive on it. Good thing we are too stubborn to die, Carl said. He was checking their equipment. I have reinforced the shelter modules, added extra power supplies. If we set up properly, we can hold out for 2 weeks. Jake nodded and looked at Peter. Where are those buildings? Peter highlighted an area on the map. Here, a valley between 2 active volcanoes. The structures are massive, possibly a whole city, but we will need to walk the last 10 kilometers. The magnetic fields are too strong for us to fly there. Then we walk, Jake decided. We land, we set up a base camp. We hike to the ruins. Standard exploration rules. We watch each other's backs. We stay alert. We do not take stupid risks, the crew nodded. They had trained for months for this mission. They knew the dangers, but they also knew something the other alien species did not know. Humans had experience with planets that tried to kill them. They knew how to read danger signs. They knew how to adapt. They knew how to survive. The Wanderer began its descent through the violent atmosphere. Jake looked at his team one more time. They were calm and focused. He thought about all the alien species that had died on this planet. He wondered what they had done wrong. Whatever it was, humans would do it differently. They had to, because going home was not an option until they found answers. The ship shook as it entered the lower atmosphere. Lightning struck the hull twice. Wind tried to flip them over. But Natalie kept them steady, her hands moving across the controls like she was playing music. 30 seconds to landing, she announced. Hang on, this is going to be rough. The landing gear deployed. The ground rushed up to meet them, and Planet X7749 waited to see if these strange new visitors would survive their first day. The Wanderer hit the ground hard. The landing struts absorbed most of the impact, but everyone on board was thrown against their safety harnesses. Natalie fought with the controls as wind screamed across the hull. She managed to kill the engines just as something huge slammed into the side of the ship. The entire vessel rocked sideways. Alarms blared. Red lights flashed across every control panel. Contact, Carl shouted, staring at his monitor. Something big just hit us west side. It is still there. Jake unbuckled and moved to the camera controls. The external cameras showed a creature the size of a small elephant. It had thick armored plates covering its body and 4 large compound eyes that reflected the light. Its mouth was full of grinding teeth, and right now those teeth were trying to bite through the ship's hull. Sparks flew each time it bit down. Amy, what is that thing? Jake asked. Amy's fingers moved quickly across her console, searching the Galactic Council database. Got it, they call it a crushworm. It is an ambush predator. Very territorial. And apparently it thinks we are either food or competition. Can it get through the hull? Linda asked. She sounded nervous. Carl shook his head. Not unless it has a plasma cutter in those teeth. But we cannot stay locked in here forever. We need to set up our perimeter defenses. Jake made his decision. Carl, Linda, prep the defense turrets. Natalie, keep the engines ready in case we need to leave fast. Amy, Peter, suit up. You are coming outside with me. Amy raised an eyebrow. We are going to fight that thing? No, Jake said, checking his rifle. We are going to teach it that attacking us is a bad idea. There is a difference. The 3 of them put on their environmental suits. The suits were built to handle extreme temperatures, high pressure, and acidic environments. They had been designed using lessons learned from exploring the worst places on Earth. The helmets had multiple cameras and sensors. The boots had magnetic clamps for unstable terrain. They stepped into the airlock. The inner door closed behind them. The outer door opened, and Planet X7749 tried to kill them immediately. The crushworm turned its massive head toward them and charged. Its 6 legs churned the ground. Its mouth opened wide. It was fast for something so big. Jake stood perfectly still. He aimed his rifle carefully, not at the creature's armored head, but at the joints where its legs connected to its body. Those joints had to be softer to allow movement. He fired 3 quick shots. The bullets hit exactly where he aimed. The crushworm shrieked, a sound like metal tearing. Its front legs collapsed and its momentum carried it face first into the ground. It thrashed and rolled, trying to get up. Jake did not fire again. He just waited, rifle ready. The creature finally got its legs under it. It stared at the three humans with its 4 eyes. Then slowly it backed away. It made a low growling sound that might have been a warning or a complaint. Then it turned and limped into a crack in the rocks nearby. Well, that was easier than expected, Peter said. He sounded relieved. Do not say that, Amy warned. You will jinx us. She was already scanning the area with her handheld equipment. We have movement everywhere. This place is crawling with life, literally crawling. For the next 3 hours, the team worked to set up a defensive perimeter around the Wanderer. They placed automated turrets at key points. They installed sonic emitters that would discourage most predators. They set up a low-voltage electric fence that would give any curious creature a painful shock without killing. The approach was borrowed from wildlife research. Stations on Earth, the goal was not to kill the local animals, but to teach them to stay away. Killing predators just made other predators move into the empty territory. But if you taught the local animals that this area was uncomfortable, they would avoid it. While they worked, the planet kept testing them. A swarm of flying creatures attacked twice. They looked like a nightmare combination of bats and hornets, with leathery wings and stinging tails. Amy drove them off with a chemical spray that irritated their wings. A huge snake-like predator tried to grab Carl and drag him into a hole in the ground. It had arms, which was disturbing. Amy shot it with a tranquilizer dart strong enough to knock out an elephant. The creature went limp and slithered back into its hole to sleep it off. A pack of smaller predators, each about the size of a large dog, tested the fence repeatedly. They were smart. They worked together, trying to find weak spots. But the fence held, and eventually they gave up and went looking for easier prey. Through it all, the humans stayed calm. They moved efficiently. They covered each other. They never panicked. When a predator attacked, they responded with just enough force to make it go away. They did not try to kill everything they saw. They just set boundaries. By the time the sun started to set, the perimeter was secure. The crew gathered inside the Wanderer, tired and sweaty but satisfied. I cannot believe we survived the first day, Linda said. She was treating a small burn on Carl's arm where some acid blood had splashed through a gap in his suit. The other species probably tried too hard not to be noticed, Peter observed. They tried to sneak around and avoid confrontation. But predators see that as weakness. We engaged the threats directly and the predators learned we are not easy prey. Jake nodded. That is how you survive on Earth. Respect the environment, but do not let it push you around. Make it clear you belong here. Tomorrow we hike to those ruins. Everyone gets some rest, but rest was difficult. All night long, the sounds of X-7749 echoed around the ship. Roars and screams and crashes. The constant rumble of volcanic activity underground. Sometimes something would hit the electric fence, yelp in pain, and run away. The planet never slept. It was always moving, always hunting, always changing. Amy lay in her bunk, listening to the chaos outside. She had studied extreme environments her whole career, but this was something completely different. Earth had dangerous places, but they were balanced by safe places. X-7749 had no safe places. Every square meter of this planet was a battlefield where evolution had been running an arms race for millions of years. The creatures here made Earth's dinosaurs look gentle. The plants made Earth's most poisonous species look harmless. Even the air was trying to kill them with its ash and sulfur content. And yet, despite all of that, Amy felt strangely at home. Maybe it was because she had spent so much time in Earth's extreme environments. Maybe it was because humans had evolved to handle danger as a normal part of life. Or maybe it was because she finally understood what Krelthar had meant. Humans were from a death world. They had always been from a death world. They just had not realized it because they had nothing to compare it to. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what it took to survive on another death world. Amy smiled in the darkness and finally fell asleep. Tomorrow they would hike to the ruins. Tomorrow they would find out what happened to the civilization that had tried to live here. Tomorrow would bring new dangers, but that was fine. Humans were good at handling danger. They had been doing it for their entire history. Dawn came to X-7749 like an explosion. The sun rose blood-red through thick layers of volcanic ash. The temperature jumped 20 degrees in just a few minutes. The nocturnal predators retreated into caves and holes, while the daytime hunters came out to start their work. Jake led the team out of the Wanderer at first light. Each person carried a heavy pack with supplies for 3 days. They had weapons, scanning equipment, and communication devices that linked back to the ship. Natalie stayed behind to monitor everything and provide help if they needed it, though the magnetic interference meant she could not fly the ship directly into the valley. The hike started well enough. The terrain was rocky and unstable. Small earthquakes happened every few minutes as volcanic activity shifted underground. But the real challenge was the wildlife. Movement at 3 o'clock, Carl called out calmly. A pack of 6-legged predators emerged from behind a ridge. Each one was roughly the size of a wolf but built much heavier. They had forward-facing eyes, which meant they were hunters, not prey animals. They moved with disturbing coordination, like they were all thinking with one brain. "Stop moving," Jake ordered quietly. "Do not run. Running makes them chase. Just stand still." The pack circled the humans slowly, growling deep in their throats. They were testing, trying to figure out if these strange 2-legged creatures were dangerous or weak. Amy slowly reached for a device on her belt and pressed a button. A high-pitched sound filled the air. Humans could not hear it, but the predators clearly could. Their ears flattened against their heads. They whined and backed away, shaking their heads like they were trying to get rid of the sound. Then they turned and ran back into the rocks. "Sonic deterrent," Amy explained. "I designed it based on their ear structure from the database. It should work on most predators here. It does not hurt them. It just annoys them enough to make them leave." They continued walking. Every 100 meters brought a new challenge. Carnivorous plants shot barbed tendrils at anything warm that moved past them. Swarms of insects descended on them like living clouds, trying to find gaps in their suits. Cracks in the ground belched poisonous gas without warning. But the humans had experience with similar dangers on Earth. They knew how to read an environment. They knew how to spot danger before it spotted them. They knew how to adapt quickly when something unexpected happened. "This valley is a natural killing ground," Peter observed as they descended a steep slope. "Anything trying to reach those ruins has to come through here." The previous expeditions probably lost most of their people in this section. "So how do we avoid their mistakes?" Linda asked. Jake pointed to a narrow ledge that ran along the cliff face. "We go high. The predators down here are adapted for hunting on the valley floor. They will not expect prey to take the hard route up there." It was a brutal climb. The rock was loose and crumbly. The heat was intense, radiating up from the volcanic vents below. But Jake had guessed correctly. They could see predators below them, huge creatures fighting over territory. But nothing came up to challenge them on the ledge. 4 hours into the hike, they reached a flat area that overlooked the ruins. "Oh my God," Amy whispered. The city spread out before them, glittering in the harsh sunlight. It was huge. Dozens of buildings made from some kind of crystalline material that caught and bent the light in strange ways. Despite being exposed to this brutal environment for what must have been thousands of years, the structures were mostly intact. They seemed to grow up from the rock itself, organic and flowing rather than angular and built. "Those are not constructed," Peter said, his voice full of wonder. "Those are grown. Bioengineered architecture. Whoever lived here did not fight against the planet. They worked with it somehow." Jake scanned the ruins with his equipment. "No life signs. The place is empty. But there is power down there, faint but still present. Something is still running after all this time." "Should we go in?" Carl asked carefully. Jake checked the sun's position in the sky. "We have 6 hours until dark. We go in, we take samples, we document everything, and we get out before the night hunters wake up. Standard procedure. Stay together. Watch for traps. Do not touch anything unless Peter says it is safe." They descended carefully into the ruins. The city was beautiful in an alien way. The structures hummed with a low vibration that they could feel in their bones. Strange symbols covered every surface, flowing like water frozen in crystal. Peter recorded everything with his cameras, barely able to contain his excitement. "This civilization was incredibly advanced," he said. "These symbols are not decoration. They are information. History written directly into the walls." "This is amazing. Can you read it?" Jake asked. "Not yet. But I can photograph and map everything. When we get back to the ship, the computer can start working on translation." As they explored deeper into the city, they found evidence of daily life. Tools made from the same crystalline material as the buildings, storage areas that had once held food or supplies. and most disturbing, what looked like graves or memorial markers. They died here, Amy said quietly, touching one of the markers. Whatever this civilization was, they did not leave. They died on this planet, but why? Linda wondered. If they were advanced enough to build all this, why could they not just leave when things got bad? They found part of the answer in the largest structure at the center of the city. It was a massive chamber. The walls were covered in the flowing script, more dense here than anywhere else. In the center of the room was a device still glowing faintly with internal power. It looked like a mix between a computer and a piece of art. Peter approached it slowly, scanning it with every instrument he had. "It is a data repository," he said, his voice shaking with excitement. "A record keeper. Their history, their science, maybe even the story of what happened to them. Everything could be in here." Jake stepped closer. "Can you access it?" Peter hesitated. "Maybe, but I need time to figure out the interface. And we are running out of daylight." Jake looked around at the alien city, at the strange, beautiful buildings that had survived when their creators had not. He made a command decision. "We photograph everything. We take samples, and we come back tomorrow with more equipment. This is too important to rush." As they prepared to leave, Amy noticed something on the walls. Among all the alien script were pictures, images carved or grown into the crystal, and some of those images looked disturbingly familiar. They showed creatures that looked very similar to the predators the humans had been fighting all day. "Jake," Amy said slowly, "I think I know what happened to them." "What?" "They did not die from the planet. They became the planet. Look at these images. This species bioengineered themselves to survive here. They transformed their own bodies over generations. They are still here, just not in the form we expected." Everyone stared at the images. The implications were staggering. A civilization so desperate to survive on this death world that they had changed themselves into the very predators that made the planet so deadly. "That is the most horrifying thing I have ever heard," Carl said. "That is evolution," Amy replied. "That is what survival looks like when you push it to the absolute limit." Jake looked around at the empty city with new understanding. It was not a tomb. It was a monument, a memorial built by beings who knew they would not exist much longer, at least not in their current form. They had built this place to remember who they used to be before the transformation was complete. "We need that data," Jake decided. "Whatever it takes. The galaxy needs to know this story. We come back tomorrow with everything we need to extract that device." They made it back to the Wanderer just as the sun touched the horizon. The night hunters were already starting to stir, but the perimeter defenses held them back. Inside the ship, they were quiet. Everyone was thinking about what they had found, about what it meant, about how far a civilization would go to survive. And deep down, they were all wondering the same thing. If humans were ever pushed that far, what would they become? Peter worked through the night. His eyes were red and tired, but he could not stop. The partial data he had collected from the ruins was starting to make sense. The computer was finding patterns in the alien script, matching symbols to concepts, building a rough translation matrix. The others tried to rest, but it was difficult. The sounds of X7749 never stopped. Something kept hitting the electric fence, yelping, then trying again from a different angle. The predators were persistent. They were also smart enough to test for weaknesses. Around 3 a.m, Peter made a sound that brought everyone running. "I got it," he said, staring at his screen. At least part of it. Enough to understand what happened. Jake was there first. "Show me." Peter brought up the translation on the main display. The alien script had been converted into rough English. It was not perfect, but it was readable, and what it said made everyone go silent. "We who remain record this for those who come after. We are the Kta, builders and dreamers. We came to this world seeking expansion, seeking resources. We did not understand what this world was. It does not accept visitors. It does not tolerate weakness. We fought for 3 generations, losing ground each year. Our cities fell. Our people died. Then our scientists proposed a solution. They would change us to match the world, rather than trying to change the world to match us. We were desperate, we agreed. The transformation took 3 generations. Our children were born stronger, faster, more aggressive. Our grandchildren were barely recognizable. By the 4th generation, they no longer remembered us. They had become part of the world. We built this city as a memorial, knowing we would be the last to remember what we were. To whoever finds this, do not pity us. We survived. We just paid a price we did not know we were agreeing to. Nobody spoke for a long time. That is the saddest thing I have ever read. Natalie finally said, "It is also the most important discovery in galactic history," Peter added. "The Council thinks Deathworlds cannot support civilization, but the Kta proved otherwise. They survived. They just had to become something else to do it." "We need to get this data back to Earth," Jake said. "This changes everything. This is proof that life finds a way, even in the worst conditions." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Natalie ran to her console, her face going pale as she read the data. "We have a major problem. Seismic activity is spiking. Both volcanoes near the ruins are showing signs of imminent eruption. The computer predicts they will both blow within the next 6 hours," Jake swore. "That data repository. If those volcanoes erupt, everything will be buried under lava. We will lose the rest of their history." "We cannot go back now," Carl protested. "The planet is deadly enough during the day. At night during volcanic eruptions? That is suicide." "He is right," Amy agreed. "We barely made it in daylight. We cannot do it in the dark with lava flows and ash clouds." Jake looked at the translation on the screen. He thought about the Kta, who had sacrificed their very identity to survive. He thought about all the alien species who had died on this planet because they gave up too soon. And he thought about humanity, about Earth, about all the times his species had done the impossible simply because someone had to. "We did not come here to play it safe," he said firmly. "We came here to find answers. That repository contains an entire civilization's history. We cannot let it be destroyed just because the mission got hard." "You are talking about a night rescue operation on a Class 15 Deathworld during active volcanic eruptions," Linda said, as if hearing the words out loud would make him see how crazy it was. "Yes," Jake said simply. "That is exactly what we are doing." "Who is coming with me?" One by one, they raised their hands. Carl first, then Amy, then Peter. Even Linda, who was clearly terrified, raised her hand. They knew the odds. They understood they might not come back, but they were human. And humans did not abandon the mission just because it got dangerous. "Natalie and Linda stay with the ship," Jake decided. "If things go wrong, you get the Wanderer to orbit, and you transmit everything we have found back to Earth. The rest of us are going to get that repository." They geared up in darkness. Thermal suits to protect against the heat, respirators for the toxic air, every light source they could carry, extra power cells, medical supplies, and weapons, not to attack but to clear a path through whatever tried to stop them. The airlock opened and they stepped out into a nightmare. The volcanoes had already begun their eruption cycle. Lava fountains shot into the sky, casting everything in hellish orange light. The ground shook constantly. The air was thick with ash that clogged their filters, and the predators, confused and terrified by the volcanic activity, were everywhere and attacking anything that moved. "Stay close," Jake ordered. "We follow the same route as before. Move fast but careful. Watch for falling rocks, and whatever happens, we do not stop." They moved through the darkness like ghosts. The thermal suits made them harder to see in the infrared spectrum that many predators used. The respirators filtered out the worst of the toxic gases, and the lights positioned carefully on their suits made them look bigger and more threatening than they actually were. The first attack came within 10 minutes. A pack of nocturnal hunters, their eyes glowing in the reflected lava light, came at them from 3 sides. But Carl had prepared for this. He threw devices that flashed with bright light and loud noise, disorienting the predators long enough for the team to slip past. The climb up to the ledge was terrifying. They could not see more than a few meters ahead. The rock was hot to the touch. Sections of the path collapsed as earthquakes shook the cliff face. But they kept climbing because going back was not an option. "There!" Peter shouted over the roar of the eruptions. The ruins. The city glowed below them, the crystalline structures reflecting the lava light like a mirror. The buildings were singing now, vibrating in response to the seismic activity. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. They descended into the city at a run. The central chamber was where they had left it, but everything felt different now. The walls hummed with energy. The floor was warm under their feet. The whole structure was resonating with the volcanic eruptions. The buildings are designed to flex with the earthquakes, Amy realized. That is why they have survived for so long. They are not rigid. They absorb the seismic energy. "Let's hope they hold together a little longer," Jake said. "Peter, can you remove that repository?" Peter examined the device closely. It was integrated directly into the floor, connected to the structure's power system. I cannot remove it without destroying it. But I can copy all the data. Give me 15 minutes. You have 10, Jake said, checking his instruments. The lava is coming faster than the computer predicted. While Peter worked frantically, the others stood guard. The ruins echoed with the sounds of destruction. The planet was reshaping itself, and everything living was trying to escape. Predators ran past the humans without even attacking, too focused on survival to care about food. Done, Peter shouted, holding up a data storage device. Complete copy. Everything the Kta recorded. Let's get out of here. They ran. The return journey was worse than the trip in. The ledge they had used was gone, collapsed into rubble. They had to descend into the valley floor, where panicked predators made everything chaos. Jake fired his weapon to clear a path. Carl threw flash grenades. Amy used every trick she knew to keep them moving forward. They were halfway back when the lava reached the ruins behind them. They turned to watch as the ancient city was swallowed by molten rock. The crystalline structures held for a moment, glowing impossibly bright, then collapsed one by one into the Inferno. It is gone, Peter said. All of it. But we have their story, Jake reminded him. We have their truth. That is what matters. Now move! They reached the Wanderer with barely 2 minutes to spare. Natalie had the engines running hot. The moment they were aboard and the airlock sealed, she launched. They broke through the atmosphere as the dual volcanic eruptions reshaped the entire valley below. From orbit, they watched the planet remake itself. Kilometers of new lava covered the area where the city had been. In a few days, there would be no sign that the Kta had ever existed, except for the data device in Peter's trembling hands. We did it, Linda said, unable to believe it. We survived a Class 15 Deathworld at night during volcanic eruptions. Jake slumped in his chair, exhausted. We did more than survive. We saved something the galaxy thought was lost forever. Peter, transmit that data to the Council. Let them know what we found. Let them know what the Kta sacrificed. Carl looked at Jake with respect. You know the Council is not going to like this. It challenges everything they believe about Deathworlds and survival. Jake smiled tiredly. Good. Sometimes beliefs need to be challenged. Sometimes the impossible needs to happen. That is what humans do. That is what Earth taught us. 3 weeks later, Ambassador Greg Palmer stood before the full Galactic Council. The chamber was packed. Every species had sent representatives to hear about the human expedition to X7749. Rumors had been spreading for days. Some said the humans had died. Others said they had discovered something that would change everything. Greg stepped up to the speaker's platform. Behind him, on the massive holographic display, images from the expedition rotated slowly. The violent planet, the crystalline ruins, the data repository, and most importantly, the translated message from the Kta. Members of the Council, Greg began, his voice calm and steady. For centuries you have classified Deathworlds as forbidden zones, places where intelligent life should never go. You believed that no civilization could survive on such worlds, and the dozens of failed expeditions seemed to prove you right. He paused, letting his words sink in. But you were wrong. The Kta did not fail. They survived. They just survived in a way you never imagined possible. Greg activated the full translation of the Kta message. The words appeared in the air above the council chamber, translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. The chamber was silent as everyone read. Ambassador Krelthar was the first to speak. But they lost themselves. They ceased to be a civilization. They became animals. Did they? Greg challenged. Commander Morrison's team observed the predators on X7749 for days. They saw tool use, coordinated hunting strategies, complex social structures. These are not mindless animals. They are the descendants of the Kta, evolved and adapted to their world. They survived. They just paid a price to do it. Council member Thress flickered with confusion. What are you saying, Ambassador? That we should celebrate this transformation? That we should consider it a success? I am saying that survival takes many forms, Greg replied. The Kta made a choice. They could have left the planet, abandoned their home, become refugees dependent on other species. Instead, they chose to adapt. They chose to become part of their world rather than fight against it forever. Was it tragic? Yes. Was it a failure? Absolutely not. He brought up new data on the display. But there is more. Commander Morrison's team did not just find the Kta Story. They proved something even more important. They survived where 17 other expeditions failed. A human team spent days on a Class 15 Deathworld and came home alive. Do you know why? The chamber erupted with voices. Everyone had a theory. Better technology, better training, luck. Greg waited for silence, then spoke one word. Earth? A new image appeared on the display. Blue oceans, green and brown continents, white clouds swirling in beautiful patterns. It looked peaceful. It looked like paradise. This is Earth, Greg said. Human homeworld. Let me tell you about it. 70% of the surface is covered in water. Sounds peaceful, right? That water contains creatures that can swallow a human whole. Sharks with rows of teeth designed to tear flesh. Jellyfish with venom that can kill in minutes. Microorganisms that can make you sick just from touching the water. He changed the image to show Earth's land masses. The land is no better. We have predators that hunt in packs and can run faster than our fastest vehicles. We have snakes with venom that shuts down your nervous system. We have spiders, insects, plants that can poison or kill you. We have diseases that have killed millions of our people throughout history. Another image appeared, showing an ice field. We have places where the temperature drops so low that exposed skin freezes in seconds. We have deserts where the heat will kill you in hours without water. We have mountains so high that there is not enough oxygen to breathe. We have valleys so deep that the pressure will crush you. Greg looked around at the shocked faces of the council members. Earth has had 5 major extinction events. Asteroid impacts, volcanic winters, ice ages. 90% of all species that ever lived on Earth are now extinct. And yet humans survived. We survived because we learned to adapt. We learned to think. We learned to work together. We learned that survival is not about being the strongest or the fastest. It is about being smart enough and stubborn enough to keep going when everything is trying to kill you. He let that sink in for a moment, then continued. Earth is a death world. Maybe not as extreme as X-7749, but a death world nonetheless. And humans are the product of that world. We evolved dodging predators. We evolved dealing with diseases. We evolved handling extreme temperatures and dangerous weather and toxic plants and venomous animals. All of that is normal to us. Ambassador Krelthar stood slowly. Are you saying that humanity is uniquely qualified to explore dangerous worlds? I am saying that humanity has experience that most species do not, Greg replied. We know what it is like to live on a planet that does not care if we survive. We know how to assess risk. We know how to adapt to new threats. We know when to fight and when to retreat and when to find a third option that no one else considered. He brought up footage from the expedition, Jake and his team calmly setting up defenses while predators circled them. Amy using sonic deterrence instead of lethal weapons. Carl building flexible defenses that discouraged rather than killed. Peter documenting everything even in the middle of danger. Look at how they handled every situation, Greg said. They did not try to conquer the planet. They did not try to kill everything that threatened them. They respected the environment. They set boundaries. They adapted their tactics to each new challenge. This is what humans do. This is what Earth taught us. Council member Thress pulsed with a color that indicated deep thought. What are you proposing, Ambassador Palmer? I am proposing that the Council reclassify death worlds, Greg said. Not as forbidden zones, but as challenging environments that require specialized personnel. Humanity volunteers to lead exploration efforts on these worlds. We will bring back data. We will find lost civilizations like the Kta. We will prove that death worlds are not the end of possibility. They are the beginning of adaptation. And what does humanity want in return? Krelthar asked suspiciously. Greg smiled. Knowledge. Access to the data we find. A seat at the table when decisions about these worlds are made. We do not want to own these planets. We do not want to exploit them. We just want to explore them and learn from them, because that is what humans do. We explore, we learn, we survive. The vote took 2 hours of debate. Some species were enthusiastic. Others were skeptical. A few were openly hostile to the idea of giving humans more influence in the council. But in the end, the evidence was too strong to ignore. The humans had succeeded where everyone else had failed. They had proven their capability in the harshest way possible. The motion passed. Death worlds would be reclassified. Humanity would lead exploration efforts with full support from the Council. And the story of the Kta would be shared throughout the galaxy as both a warning and an inspiration. After the vote, Greg received a private message from Commander Jake Morrison. The Wanderer had just entered orbit around another planet. This one was classified as a Class 11 Deathworld. The crew was already preparing for their descent. The message ended with a simple sentence. "We are ready. Send us the coordinates for the next one." Greg laughed and shook his head. Of course they were ready. They were human. Being ready for impossible challenges was what they did best. He thought about Earth, about humanity's long history of surviving things that should have killed them. Ice ages and plagues and wars and disasters. They had survived all of it. They had not just survived, they had thrived. They had spread across their entire planet, adapting to every environment they found, and now they were spreading across the galaxy, bringing that same stubborn refusal to quit, the same adaptability, the same determination to find answers no matter how dangerous the questions. The Galactic Council had been exploring space for thousands of years. They had mapped countless worlds and categorized them all. They thought they knew which planets were possible and which were not. But they had forgotten something important. They had forgotten that life does not care about possibility. Life does not follow the rules. Life finds a way, even in the most impossible conditions. The Kta had found a way. They had transformed themselves to match their world, paying a price that most species would consider too high. But they had survived. And now humanity was showing another way. Not transformation, but adaptation. Not surrender, but persistence. Not becoming part of the planet, but learning to coexist with it. It was the human way, the Earth way, the Deathworld way, and the galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the impossible just needs the right people to attempt it. Sometimes the forbidden just needs someone brave enough or crazy enough to try. Greg looked out at the stars beyond the council chamber and smiled. Somewhere out there, Jake and his team were landing on another nightmare world. They would face new dangers. They would adapt to new challenges. They would find new answers. Because that is what humans did. That is what Earth had taught them. Survival was not about being the strongest. It was about being too stubborn to quit. It was about finding a way forward even when there seemed to be no path. It was about taking the word impossible and proving it wrong, one dangerous planet at a time.